Welcome to the Level Up Fishing Podcast Anglers Interviews. I'm Andy Cochran, today's host for Anglers Interviews, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing my wife, my best friend, and my favorite fishing buddy, Stormy Cochran. Over the years, we have won tournaments together. We've seen each other catch our personal best fish of many different species, and we've both enjoyed this fishing journey together. So I'm really excited to learn a few more things about how Stormy got involved with this industry and what we've got to look forward to from her in the future. You know, Stormy is an incredibly accomplished angler. She's also a wonderful mother of 4 daughters, and she keeps GSO afloat. She's the power behind GSO Fishing. She's the heart of the company, she's the mind of the company, and she's what makes everything work. So without further ado, I would love to introduce to you Stormy Cochran.
Oh, well, thank you.
Like I said, we are switching places. This is Stormy's Angler Interview podcast, but today I get to ask the questions.
I'm a little nervous, I'm not going to lie.
Because I feel like you have incredible insight that is not as common in the fishing world as it should be, and I think you can help with that.
Well, thank you.
So, let us know, how did you get started in fishing?
So the funny thing is I didn't fish but one time that I can remember as a kid. Looking back as an adult, I can see that it was actually probably not a very good environment, but I was having so much fun fishing that I didn't realize what was happening. We went up to a lake, I assume above South Fork. I was little. And I was like the golden child. And I know that sounds really bad, but every time I touched a pole, I caught a fish. Every single time. And my stepdad at the time couldn't catch anything. And he was getting so mad. And I didn't understand why, because again, I was having a blast. It was so much fun. But I just remember every time I would touch a pole, I'd catch a fish. And he had been fishing for a long time and hadn't caught anything. And then he had to use the bathroom. And so he's like, "Hey, can you hold my pole?" And I swear he took 10 steps away. And I was like, "Oh, I caught a fish." I remember to this day how angry he was. But anyways, I have this photo, and it's the only time I really fished as a kid. And I'm just holding this whole stringer of rainbow trout. And it was so fun looking back now. But I did not go into like life thinking, I'm going to be a fisherman. This is the funnest thing. It's just a memory I have. But then I married you, and we started things out a little backwards. But when we got married, I quickly realized like we didn't have a whole lot in common in the beginning. And I wanted to do something, to share something with you. And the wonderful thing is you always invited us, like me and Sam would go tag along with you. It was never like, I'm going fishing, you can stay home with our kiddo. It's like, do you guys want to come fishing with me? And I didn't fish and I was terrified of boats, but we went. And I don't exactly know when it started, but I have this like foggy memory of watching you stand at the front of the boat and catching fish. And I just kept thinking, well, I could do that. And I'm kind of competitive, but sadly only with you. And I don't even know when I eventually picked up a rod or anything. I know it wasn't like the very first trip we went out. We had gone out several times. It could have been years for all I know, but I eventually, like, my competitiveness got the best of me, and I was like, I can do that. I got this. And so I started fishing, and I guess the rest is history. It's just wanted to, one, be with you and do something with you and build this connection with you. But at the same time, I wish I could just be like, oh, I'm so sweet. I did this for my husband. But really, I was competitive. And I watched you, and I watched you, and I watched you, and I watched you. And I would do exactly what you would do that I could see. And there's so much to it now that I know that I couldn't see, but I did exactly what you did. And for years I did it that way. I would just watch, and you would twitch your rod and I would twitch my rod. And then eventually I learned my own techniques and my own things. That's how I got started.
So it sounds like you were destined for it.
not true. It's definitely, I never thought growing up like my life is going to be all fishing. Like that is what I'm going to do with my future. And I'm so glad it is because I truly love it. I'm so glad that you invited us and you said, "Hey, let's go." And that we've built this life around it.
So, with all of that, like how you got started and how it kind of went, like at this point, what keeps you hooked on fishing?
There's so many things, but I would say the peace that it brings me. Like when I go out fishing, I'm actually not per se searching for a fish. Some days I am. But for the most part, like we live a pretty crazy life. We have 4 daughters and we run a company and it's busy. It is busy all the time. And fishing just brings me this level of peace, even if the girls are on the boat and it's chaos and wild, because we've had those trips before, it's still this level of peace. Like they're being out in nature, being with our family, or being by myself. I always say it, the sun on my face does something to my soul that makes me super happy. It just brings me this level of peace that I think is truly remarkable.
We're kind of in the season now where we start shoreline fishing, and we are in the midst of kind of a shoreline series where we're educating a lot of folks on how to approach shoreline fishing and safety and equipment and all that stuff. And over the past 20 years, what I've learned about you is you are an incredibly talented and accomplished shoreline angler. And with that being kind of your go-to and your favorite way to approach a lake, is there a certain species that you really like to target from shore, or what's kind of your favorite thing to shoreline fish for?
When I go out fishing, generally speaking, I don't have a target species in mind. And a couple years ago, I would have said brown trout. I love brown trout fishing, but man alive, I love perch fishing. And perch fishing isn't as easy, I would say, from the shore because of the way we fish for them. And so it is a little bit more of a challenge. You lose a lot of gear if you're not paying attention. So man, it's a tie between those two. I really love brown trout fishing, but I really love targeting perch as well. So it's kind of hard to say.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's so many good options.
There are. And there are so many fish, right? There are so many fish out there, but like Blue Mesa is home. It's where I literally learned how to fish with you. It's where our kids have grown up. It just feels like home. So when I think of fishing, I don't think about pike and muskie and bass and all the fish that we actually don't have here. I think about our home lake, and those are just my 2 go-to favorite fish.
What then is your most memorable shoreline fish that you have caught? Is there one?
It's so hard to say, but the one that really comes to mind is, like, we have fished the shoreline together so many times, and I fished the shoreline by myself so many times, but the fish that stands out, and not because it's the best fish, brown trout, I've ever caught, but we shoreline fished a couple years ago, and it was in the evening and it was cold. Oh my goodness, it was cold. Like your fingers want to break off cold. But one of our daughters had a lot going on, and so that night I chose to walk the shoreline with her, and I was fishing as I was walking, and we were picking up trash along the way, and I didn't get a single bite. Nothing. I got nothing that night. I was throwing our finesse, kokanee fry finesse jig, swim finesse jig. It was a great evening of just walking the shoreline, watching the sunset, freezing our butts off, but chatting with my daughter at the same time. And you were down the bank with the other girls. And then when we came back, it was one of those like, I'm going to throw one last cast kind of things. And it was dark. It doesn't look like it in the photo because the camera brightened everything up, but it was dark out. And I hooked into an incredible brown trout, biggest brown trout I've ever caught on the kokanee fried jig. And I just remember being like, Andy, Andy. And that's my go-to. Whenever I hook into something I'm not expecting, I just start chanting your name. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Andy. I did it with the lake trout too, but it wasn't so much as holding the fish, and you were so wonderful. It was freezing and you held that fish and revived it in the lake water, and then you were an ice cube afterwards. But it was so incredible. But the part that's the most memorable to me is our girls and you cheering so loud for me when I landed that fish. That is what made that even more special, because it wasn't just a fish I caught by myself, but it was a fish I caught with my family. And I think that is what makes it all the more better.
Oh, well, that's a really cool story. I thought you were going to talk about your giant lake trout you caught from the bank.
I freaked out on that one too. I was like, Andy, Andy.
That was like the prettiest fish I ever saw.
And again, it was such an incredible memory. You were there with me. It was unexpected. I was fishing for rainbows and I hooked into this monster, beautiful male lake trout. Had to race up and down the rocks. We were fishing in big old chunk rock. I don't do well with that. I don't have the best stability. I'm like a baby deer. And so I was like, I'm going in this lake with this fish. And you were, quote unquote, filming me. By the way, he never pressed record. He was pressing the camera button.
Whoops.
It was funny. But that one too, I cried afterwards because I was so dang proud of myself. I had never landed anything that big from shore. I just sat there and cried, and you were so supportive. Andy doesn't do tears well, but he just sat there and patted me. It was great. So that one too, but it's just that memory of all you guys cheering for me in that moment was so, and our girls were so genuinely happy for us. Even though it was freezing cold, they were so happy for me. So
yeah, that brown trout was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. So I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit. So okay. You, as we alluded to, you are an incredibly accomplished female angler, mm-hmm. and in an incredibly male-dominated sport. And so I want to kind of talk a little bit about some of that stuff with you too, because I know there's differences in how we approach and how people think about things, like from a male's perspective and a female's perspective. And I think how you've been able to be so successful in your fishing career, it might be helpful for some other ladies to just hear about some stuff like that. And so, like one question I had was, what are some of the challenges that you face as a female angler?
I don't take for granted how incredibly lucky I am to have my mentor also be my best friend and my husband. I don't take that for granted because, a lot of people pay their mentors. No matter what the industry is, they pay their mentors to get advice. And I can just look at you and be like, hey, I have this idea. What do you think about this? And you give me your advice. And so I'm incredibly lucky in that sense of, you're so far advanced in the fishing world and you have so many years of experience, and I don't take that for granted, where a lot of people don't have that. I mean, like, for instance, we were at a lake recently. I won't say what lake. We were fishing the shoreline, and I'm a people watcher, and there was a couple fishing down the shoreline, and I see this a lot where she'll catch a fish or she's excited about fishing and it just gets shot down so hardcore. Like, I watched that female angler just be so animated and like explain what she's doing to her partner who is sitting on a picnic bench and just being like, like you could see he couldn't get out of there quick enough. And she was like, yeah, talking about the different stuff she was using, and she was so excited about it. And it just got shot down over and over and over. And I've watched that on the shorelines of the river too, where anglers, what I assume would be a girlfriend caught a fish, and the guy was so threatened by that. And he was just like, you get it off. And she was like, can you help me? Clearly she didn't want to touch it. And that's okay. Not everyone likes that. But he was so threatened by the fact that she caught a fish that you could see, like, the dismissive tone was just heartbreaking to watch. And I've never had that. I've always had a partner who supports me thoroughly. Like, how many years did you cut up the worms because I didn't want to touch them? Like, I think I just started doing that. You still do that for me, but I think I just started doing that on my own because I don't want to touch them. Mm-hmm. But I'm incredibly lucky in that. In the same breath, in the beginning, I mimicked you and I copied you. But then eventually I was like, your style is very different than the style I want to create for myself. And I just started doing what felt more naturally to me. So you can have a mentor, but you don't have to copy everything and follow every bit of advice, because you're your own person. You have your own memories, you have your own experiences, you have your own knowledge, and I think you should apply that. And so I think a lot of times I see female anglers defer to men because it's a quote unquote male sport. And I did it for a long time. And I am not only a female in a male sport, but I'm a female who owns a company in a male sport that has a team of male guides. I work with no women. But going back to like, how could you help females and like advice for them? When I caught that lake trout from the shoreline, you were so proud of me and you text all kinds of people about it. And I didn't know who to text. I didn't know who to tell about that. Don't get me wrong, I have an amazing family and I have great friends, but they just don't have the passion for it. They would have been proud of me for sure, but they don't have the passion for it. And I guess I feel almost guilty just being like, oh my gosh, look at this fish I caught. And they're like, that is great. They would have been totally happy for me. But in that moment, I just felt like I didn't have anyone. And you guys, I've been in this industry for a very long time, but I've always worked with men and been around men. And I just didn't feel like I could be like, hey, Kyle, look at this fish I caught. Anyways, you had already done that, but I just didn't, I didn't know who to talk to. And so one piece of advice is join women's communities. There are more and more and more opening every day. There's bass ones, there's trout ones, there's state related ones. There's some great ones here in Colorado that I recently joined. But find a community of people to support you. And from that incident, from that lake trout, I reached out to somebody who has supported our company from the very beginning. And I reached out to her and I didn't ask her permission, so I don't know if I can say her name. But anyways, she has been a huge top supporter of our company. And I reached out to her and I was brutally honest, and it was so hard. But I said, I don't have anyone that I feel like truly gets how excited I am in this moment. Would you be okay if I sent you photos and you do the same, and I'll cheer you on and you cheer me on? And she was just like, oh my gosh, yes, please. And after the conversation, we quickly realized we were in the same boat per se. Like, she felt that way too. And, I felt that way. And it was such a good connection, and we've gotten together and gone fishing, and I want to do that so much more this summer. But being vulnerable is really hard, but being able to say like, hey, I need some like-minded people and I want some support here, and making those connections, I think, is a huge part of it, because I don't believe that fishing should be a solo sport. I'm very different in that sense, that I think it should be a community, and not all communities are the same. That is so true. But you find your community of people that fish the way you do, fish in the area that you do, that are supportive like you are, and reach out to them and make those connections. I think that is a huge part of fishing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like-minded and supportive, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. And it's not a competition. And that, I think, is something a lot of anglers forget, is like, Andy and I are out on the boat and he catches 8 fish to my 1. I can still be so happy for him. And he can be happy for me that I caught one. It doesn't have to be a competition. And when I say I am competitive with Andy, it is always in fun. It is not mean-spirited or anything like that. We place bets like whoever catches the first fish doesn't have to make dinner because we both hate cooking. And so we do fun things like that. And I am competitive in that sense, but it's all in fun. It doesn't have to be malicious. And I think you can find those people that match your style.
So you clearly are an influencer and a business owner and a top female angler in this industry. So I'm sure there's got to be there's got to be ways that those sorts of things can be improved. Like what kind of ideas do you have that could improve women's involvement, women's comfort level in this quote male dominated sport, which I feel like is really getting way better.
Yeah.
But have you got any sort of ideas going forward of how the women's participation in fishing can be greatly improved?
First off, that was very nice of you to say all those things. I don't feel those things. I feel like I'm just an angler who loves the sport and wants to share it with other people. But in saying that, we do have a platform that not every angler does. And so I do feel a responsibility to help and support because of being given that platform. I don't ever want to take advantage of that. And I feel like there's a lot of things that could be improved, but I don't think this is necessarily what you're thinking. I feel like communication could be improved a lot. I feel like it shouldn't be like him versus her. I feel like it should be a community. And there are things that, particularly, sadly, male anglers do and perceive that I feel if there was education involved, because I don't think it's malicious on all fronts, but say this scenario. There's a female angler and she goes into a sporting goods store. Oftentimes, if she is shopping and is approached by a male associate that works at the store, women can feel talked down to, they can feel ignored, like it's great that he approached her in the first place, but sometimes they don't even approach us, And so I feel like there are things there that could be improved. I feel like it should be viewed as a community and not segregation, I guess is how I think about it. At the same time, I feel like there's a big safety issue and that's coming out more and more based on like research we've done. But I feel like there's the safety issue that women truly don't feel safe doing the sport they love, and that breaks my heart, and I don't know how to tackle that one per se, but it's there. And the other thing is, I guess I want women to feel respected in the sport. And again, this isn't all just like guy versus girls. Like there are women that don't respect women in the sport because of the species of fish they target. Like, oh, I'm a bass fisherman, I know more than you because you're just a trout fisherman. Like those kinds of things, like that hierarchy to me doesn't make sense. Like I'm a fisherman through and through. I go out when I can. I'm also a mom and I also run a business and I also do all these things. But just because of that doesn't mean because you're on the bass circuit that you're any more or less than I am. And so I guess I wish there wasn't so much hatred in the sport across the board, not just for women anglers and not just for male anglers and not just for like species anglers. I can't understand it. Like, I guess I just wish people would go out and find the joy and happiness in fishing and not nitpick so much of the other stuff.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, it is across the board, yeah.
Yeah, and not feel threatened by other anglers. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, we both love this sport. Why does the fact that you like this sport threaten me?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. So I approach it very differently than a lot of people do. And most everyone I've met in the industry, I come at it from a completely different angle of like, I am so grateful that you taught me this skill and this introduced me to this sport. I'm so grateful for that because 90% of the memories I have of the last 20 years are around fishing and the joy it brings or the things we've learned. So why would I not want to share that with somebody else?
Yeah, I like it.
So
very unselfish approach. So what are some goals or dreams that you have related to fishing?
My very, very first goal is I'm going to catch the state record perch.
Oh, yeah.
And at the same time, if somebody catches it before me out of Blue Mesa, I am going to cheer the loudest for you because I know it is in that lake.
Yeah.
And I am going to be on my tiptoes screaming for you. I will be so happy. But at the same time, I would love for that angler to be me as well.
Heck yeah.
Other goals is I just want to see GSO grow into what I know it can be. And I want to see more anglers talk about what they are struggling with and not get beaten to hell for it. I want to see anglers say, this is hard. I don't understand this, and not be ridiculed for it. And maybe I never see that in my lifetime, but man, someday I hope. I hope you can go somewhere and say this is hard and not be made fun of. I hope that you can post your 4-inch trout that you're so proud you caught because maybe you haven't caught one in the last year and you've been trying so hard. And I want to see everyone cheer for you.
Ooh, I like that.
And I feel like GSO is going to be one of those places that people can go and feel supported. And that is my ultimate goal for our company. I don't know where it ends up or what it looks like, but I want to see that anglers can be like, oh my gosh, I caught this 4-inch fish and I'm going to cheer for you. And then I want to see the whole industry. I want to see the whole fishing industry change. And I want it to be approachable and teach education.
Yeah, because the way I see it right now, it's an old man sport, and it's every man for himself, and otherwise it's all about the highlight reels and none of the struggles, and there's so much of it there's so much behind the scenes that's not talked about and skipped over, like the learning, the helping.
Yep. Even tackle companies. How often do you see tackle companies, like you see it more in the bass industry, but like especially in the trout industry, how many tackle companies sit and educate people on their products? They give you the features of their products. They give you like why their product is better. Then the pros tell you should buy the product, but nobody actually tells little Joe Schmo down here in Colorado how to use it successfully.
No.
And I just think that is like they are missing the mark on that, because how many people actually just instinctually know how to use a tube jig? They don't. Yeah, okay, I'm going to jig it, but do you know how much you can actually do with the tube jig? Like, it is so versatile. And so I just think there are so many companies that are missing the mark in educating anglers on how to actually use the products that they're selling them. Because how many anglers have whole garages or storage sheds or a million tackle boxes full of products they don't use because they don't know how?
Guilty.
You know how.
I know how.
You're an addict. I just feel like if more education was out there, it would make such a big impact.
Yeah, I agree. Good thinking. Well, how do you balance all of this? Family, fishing, business. How do you balance all of this stuff and your other responsibilities? How's that going?
You know what's funny is like people get so mad at men for asking women that question. And because men often don't get asked that question. And I think it's a great question because it's a balance for me every single day. And some days I feel like I'm failing everything, every single part of it. But ultimately, our kids and family come first, always, no matter what. And lately, I guess I feel like I'm failing because we're at a really hard stage. And we have, I say 4 teenagers. We don't. We have a 20-year-old and 2 teenagers and 1 preteen. but it feels like 4 teenagers. And they're amazing. They are such good girls. We, they're, oh gosh, I can't even say it enough. We have the best daughters. And even the best daughters are hard because they're teenagers and they're going through hormone changes and we have a lot on our plate. And so I feel like it is a balance, but I feel like you balance it just as much as I balance it. And so I've never hated that question, and I've never understood why people do. I probably look at it the wrong way, but I think it is a balance. And sometimes some of it is going to be a lot heavier than other stuff. And that's what I have to focus on. Some days I have to get 10,000 100 jigs out of the house for big giant orders, and I sit and file every single one. And then some days our daughters are just having a really hard time, and they are my whole focus. So I don't know that I don't have a routine. I don't have I wish I could be like, Monday is social media day and Tuesday is hanging out with our girls, but it's like minute to minute in my life. Like the next 15 minutes I am focusing on AJ and whatever is affecting her right now. And then after that I'm going to take Sam to speech therapy, and then I'm going to do a post on Facebook, and then I'm going to trim some jigs, and then I have to make dinner, and everyone's going to groan because I cooked again.
That almost sounds like fishing.
Yes.
I think that can equate to that, where I think our life has helped us wing it better.
We wing it a lot.
And when you're in the moment and you have more experience, you're able to just, I say wing it, but it's like change plans rapidly with a purpose, and it all works out pretty good.
It does. I'd love to get to where I could have a plan, but I don't foresee that anytime soon.
Yeah.
So
that's okay.
It is okay. It is. It works.
Well, this has all been very insightful, and I hope some folks out there can learn some things from you and get a direction of where they can go and get community support and be heard and be able to learn things better. And that's all really great advice.
Well, thank you so much for having me and switching places with me today. This has been a lot of fun.
So one last question for everyone listening is, what do you think is the best way for an angler to up their shore fishing game? Because clearly you're at the top of that game. So what can people learn or work on that can really improve their shore fishing success, do you think?
I don't think I'm at the top of the game. I think I don't even know if there's a top, but I feel like there's always an up.
Mm-hmm.
I think fishing is so unique in the sense that there's no rules. Like there's exceptions to every rule, so ultimately there's no rules. Like you can always level up, and you can always learn something new, and you can always, there's always something to gain. There's 2 things that I think that they can do, and the first one being, I think you just need to spend more time on the water. And it doesn't even have to be a purpose involved, but if you want to level up, then you should probably have a goal or an expectation of what you're going to do. But spending more time on the water with situational awareness. Why did you get that bite? Why did you hook that rock? Why did you whatever? Ask yourself the questions, okay? But realistically, and I know this firsthand, everyone thinks GSO, oh my gosh, you guys get to fish all the time, don't you? And the crazy thing is we don't. We fish for work. And so even on our days off, we're practicing the techniques we use for work, which aren't necessarily the ones that we use for ourselves. I'm lucky in a sense that I'm actually not a guide. So all the time I get to spend on the water is for me. And either from the shoreline or my paddleboard, all that time is for me. But that time is so few and far between because I am a mom first. Some people might not know this, but our oldest daughter has Down syndrome, and she has a lot going on and needs a lot of extra care. And so I don't always get to go fishing. And I know that is the case for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can't devote more time on the water, but you want to level up, learn any way you can. There are, like, we offer paid courses. If that's not in your budget, YouTube has 100 million hours of fishing videos. And maybe you don't learn something from every second, and maybe it's not as targeted like our digital courses are. Like, you might learn a little bit about what he's doing, but it might not be like, hey, this is how you fish a transition point. Okay, so you have to weigh the pros and cons there. Doing Google research, doing contour map research, all the different tools that you can use them. So if you can't spend time on the water, but you still want to level up your fishing, if you use those tools in your spare time, watch a YouTube video at night after your family's gone to bed, wake up at 5 in the morning and watch a YouTube video, go practice casting in your driveway or in your apartment complex's playground when nobody else is there. Those things are things you can do with the limited time you have, so that when you go out on the water, you are prepared and you are leveling up even though you're not on the water.
Great advice. I like it.
Thank you.
Well, that was really fun. Thank you again for joining me on your interview podcast and letting me take over.
Thank you so much for having me.
And so until next time, we will see you on the water.